Welcome back to Luke's Toolbox, where I'm turning this old van into my dream adventure camper. In the last episode I finished up this built-in shelving, and in this one we're going to continue working on the wall, so it's going to look more like the finished one over here. First up, we're going to insulate all the spots where we still have some bare metal showing, so let's get that done real quick. Now it's a beautiful day today. In fact, I think it might be the first sunny van build day in like 3 months. So yeah, super happy about that. In under 2 hours, we're gonna go for a surprise pickup, which I'm super excited about. Now before that, we've got a ton of offcuts and I took lots of measurements for some wood panels in the back of the van. So we're gonna have a little shelf over here, then clad this part, and then also make another shelf, which is gonna make use of this wall cavity. So I've got all the parts we need roughly cut out. However, before that, it's time for the pickup. So I picked up 2 of those newspaper boxes and let me tell you, they're incredibly heavy. So far I've got no clue what I'm gonna do with them. What I do know is that they are super sticky, grimy, and just incredibly filthy. So whilst giving them a thorough cleanup, I'm gonna talk to you about how I got my hands on them. So 20 Minutes was Switzerland's biggest free daily newspaper, reaching up to 1 million people every single day. They launched over 25 years ago, and at its peak they were printing over 500,000 copies a day and distributing them through thousands of these blue boxes at train stations all over the country. Last December they pulled the plug on print, went fully digital and had to get rid of all the boxes. So they ran a raffle and for 20 bucks each I got to pick up 2 of them at the old printing facility. Got 1 stand and 1 box which are pretty clean, but then the other one, just look at the stand. It's completely rotten off, so that's gonna be quite a pain. And then over here, there's just so much gunk in the bottom, I can barely get it off with the pressure washer. So for now I'm just gonna finish cleaning the good one and then come back to the bad one tomorrow. Now aside from the floor plate, this one looks pretty much as good as new. And as for the woodworking, after lots of chiseling, sanding, measuring, marking, trimming, drilling, routing, and even more sanding, I've got all the parts ready for the glue up. So we've got the 2 pieces done and painted twice. Now before installing them over here, we've still got some unfinished business on the wheelhouse. And I finally decided to go the same route as over here to carpet it. So let's give that a go. that's it for carpeting. There are some wrinkles up here, but that's pretty much not going to be visible. Only important parts are over here and then on this side, and those turn out pretty well. Now I thought I could glue in the little shelf right now, and I've got no clue how I missed it, but obviously the trim piece for over here has to go in first. So that's gonna be on my plan for tonight, and to not bore you, I'm just gonna see you tomorrow when everything's ready to get glued in. Got the piece done and taped up, and also redid the insulation on this corner. So now everything's ready to get it installed. So that's all glued in, and please don't get me wrong, I absolutely love when it snows, but it just makes working on the van so much slower, because as you've probably noticed, once the van's in the garage, I can only open the sliding doors and it's just a pain to work on it. But good news, in a few days we're finally back to sunny weather and temperatures above 15 degrees, which is gonna come in super handy for doing the plywood panel like over here, for this side as well. Now I do want to use the few remaining cold days though, so I printed out a few pictures of the van and I took lots of measurements so we can come up with a 3D model and then start designing kind of the build out for in here. And we also still need to glue in the LED strips over here, so let's get out the soldering iron again. Got them all soldered up and also removed the sticky backing. And then over here, wherever there's going to be LED strips, I taped off the wood. So on to the final glue up for today. Now finally it's big panel day, and don't worry, the weather should clear up quite a bit, but it's already so much warmer than the last few days. So I've got all the tools ready and then also modeled up what the wall is gonna look like. Now before explaining you all the cutouts a bit more in detail, we first gotta get a straight reference line on the bottom and then also the perimeter roughly cut to size so we can dry fit it in here. Now especially around the back there's gonna be quite some work ahead of us until it looks like this side over here. First try, and it already doesn't fit too bad. It just needs a little bit of routing on the back side, because just like on this side, the van is pretty much at a 45-degree angle up here. Before fitting it a second time, there still are some panels and pieces of framing that are sticking out too far. So we gotta do something about those, and then we can temporarily mount the sheet over here and make it all look nice. So now we can use these little transfer pins to mark the panel where we need to drill the holes for the bolts that go in here. Now the few bits I constantly use in this cheap drill sets, they pretty much reach the end of their lives and tear out a ton. So I got a new drill set, and this time, well, should have gone for that from the start, but I went for the arguably best forcer bit there is on the market, at least if you trust reviews. How should I know where the top is? No one's gonna know. Wait, it was right. I'm confused. That was incredible. Just look at the clean edges they leave. So I've got all the rough dimensions and also the outlines of the panel. So now back to the drawing board. There's going to be two different styles of holes. The ones for the shelves and the little vent in the back are just going to be cut all the way through. And then back here for the outlet, the switch panel in the front, and then also the entire electrical cabinet. We're gonna use the router to cut in the little groove. So that took quite a lot of figuring out, and as you can see, a ton of measurements. And then the last thing is gonna be 3 holes on the top, so all the warm air from the electrical compartment has a way to go. So now I've got all the outlines marked up, as well as all the holes we need to drill. That's for sure gonna keep me busy for quite a while. So I've got all the holes drilled and then also pre-scored all the lines, and hopefully that will prevent tear out once we go at it with the jigsaw. And just look at the beautiful weather. It's full on summer mode. Now with all of that roughly cut aside, we're gonna start today tinkering around with all the electrical stuff. This is kind of my proposed layout of the switch panel, and you can see it's pretty cramped in there. And I still need to fit these 3 dimmers in here, and obviously there's no way. So I wanna open one of these up and see if we can get the PCB out and then also separate the little dimming knob. Then maybe I can mount the metal unit to the back wall and then just have the knob in the little switch panel. So this is going to be the piece we need to remove, and it seems to have 2 positioning pins and then 3 little feet that actually need to be connected. Now the soldering iron wasn't even close to being warm enough to get the solder off, so I just had to use some flush cut pliers, and it sure wasn't the nicest job, but I got the little potentiometer off. So now on to soldering on 3 wires on these pins and then testing out if this thing even works. So I put up a little testing system with a battery, then going through the dimmer, that's connected to the car charger, which will work as a voltage meter. And whenever we start turning the dimmer, the voltage should rise. Please just don't ask how long it took to solder everything up. And I'm not so confident it'll work. All right, so let's see. It's off now. Ooh, that's a good sign. We are reading 5 volts. Now I turn it up a bit. We're at 9, 10, all the way on, and we're reading 12.3. So the little modification actually worked just as intended. I'm really not sure how long the solder joints are gonna hold up. I gotta think about what to do next. So I tried getting it to work, but the solder kept falling off, so I was scrapping this idea, and I just trimmed off the little PCBs. So they are as small as they can be, and they just about fit in the width of the panel cutout. They are too tall to fit in here though, so I decided I'm just gonna do a second cutout here. Sure isn't my preferred option, but I think it will look good in the end. But now back outside to finish cutting the plywood. Did you just hear that? That sounded like a building blew up. Well, I guess I gotta read the news tomorrow. I have no clue what's happening about having a police and military helicopter in the air. I don't know, that's not a good sign. Now, that was such a beautiful evening yesterday, and it's gonna be even nicer. Finally, the news got out what happened with the big boom. And yeah, it's kind of ironic, but on a little testing ground a few kilometers away from here called Tätsch, which pretty much means kaboom in Swiss German, they tried to dispose of many 100 kilograms of explosives, and it just didn't go to plan. Funnily enough, I think I was the only one who got the audio and recording. So I sent out a little video to the online newspaper and they published it, and I got 50 bucks for it. So yeah, that's the first YouTube money I made. I also sent it to 20 minutes, but they didn't publish it yet, so I might still get another 50 bucks. We'll see. As for the panel, I got everything roughly cut to size and also fixed 2 little blown out spots. Now I want to quickly dry fit it again in the van and then finish up doing all the leftover woodworking tasks. So the wall is in and I think it looks really good, aside from a little screw up in the measurements. I cut the opening about 15 millimeters too big, but since it's the inside corner and it's going to be covered up by the switch panel, it shouldn't be visible in the end. Getting pretty warm out here with the sun and all the sanding, but that's done. Now it's time to get out the special drill bit again. It should already be in the 12mm configuration. That means if all my measurements and calculations were right, once we router out these openings, they should line up perfectly with the other ones over here. Now it probably makes sense to ease into it a bit, so I have it set up so that I can make 4 passes, and that should hopefully leave a clean finish without any tear out. Super happy with how the routering worked out. It left almost a perfect finish, but there still is some sanding ahead. Also, I just spotted the first few flowers popping out of the grass. So yeah, it really feels like summer today. Well, finally time to paint. Now I think it looks incredible, but before installing there's still quite a lot of stuff to do on the electrical side and also making the little switch panels. That's gonna be for next episode. Thanks a ton for watching, and I'm gonna see you in the next one.